All right, sorry about that, everybody. We're live again. How goes it, Ken Bozak, here to talk about
Hmm.
Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I'm with my bro, Patrick Booth, who I
Hey.
haven't seen since Coinvention and Anarchadelphia in Philadelphia, which we were talking about before my internet had issues.
Hmm. Oh man, it happens. We gotta give a shout out to our ISPs, right, before we can move forward, eh?
Yeah,
Hey, so yeah, we're talking about the idea of like showmanship and presence. You know what I mean? So it's all about the premise of actually being able to have a voice. You were talking about the event that you're going to be doing in Miami, two events quite possibly, and that's just
yeah.
because people enjoy your character, man, as an influencer, and it's really great,
Yeah,
nonetheless, like it's a blessing.
it's weird too, man. Like, just I'm just a dude with a Twitter account. You know what I mean, or whatever. Like, I'm just present on the internet, and it's really cool to have a presence that's accepted. I guess in that way, where conferences and events reach out and do want me to be at the venue, and
Hmm.
people are excited to see me at the events and stuff, which is really cool. I'm pretty blessed to have the family I have in the crypto community.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know it's all about getting in where you fit in, and you obviously fit in for sure. So uh, I, on the other hand, like I've been building and just like trying to make sure that people understand that there's a way to tokenize your information outside of these, specific channels that are owned by the technocratic oligarchs of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., and actually make a living on blockchain, and actually finance change.
But what do you think of these mainstream artists that make Bitcoin actual parody type music? Where we have like Soldier Boy, I believe even what's his name in the Eminem? He has a verse where he talks about everybody on that nickel, we on that Bitcoin. Like, it has
Mhm.
it has a presence in the mainstream music industry, but why aren't they utilizing it in the sense that you're talking about?
Because they're just a part of a geoengineering, social engineering plot, in my opinion. Not to get a bit conspiratorial, but like it comes down to borders and transactions, man. Like it comes down to people hearing about it subliminally, but not actually understanding what it's really all about, and actually utilizing these platforms that are emerging to bring forth the change. It's just like that ploy. It's a mental ploy. I mean, there are some artists that are deploying their art on Audius right now, which you got Zed's Dead, Dead Mouse, you got like Lewis the Child, Mr. Carmack,
What's
and
audio play?
Res. It's called Audius, and it's built on the Ethereum blockchain, but they're not actually paying out yet. So
Okay, so
yeah.
how are these artists involved though in that platform?
Oh, they've actually confirmed through their legitimacy through their other social media accounts, the traditional corporate channels, as well as committing exclusive releases,
Okay, so the
exclusive
actual have like
EPs.
audio music that is
Hmm.
stored on the blockchain.
Yep, exactly. It's not a new phenomenon. I've actually been deploying my music on the blockchain for about a year now, coming up on a year, I'd say next month. And yeah, I go by £10 sterling on Tune, and there's been a whole collaboration of artists such as Darude, Chosowski has been there, and other mainstream underground artists as well that are in like the EDM DJ scene. They've been contributing their data onto the Tune network, and you know these artists are actually earning these ERC20 tokens called notes,
Well,
and
how
these
do we
notes.
use this technology to prevent like copywriting and things like torrenting and stuff like that? Because I think that's probably what would interest most artists, right? Is how to utilize the tech to prevent illegal sharing.
That's a good question. And in fact, there's a platform called Soundlinks that is actually doing such a thing where they're making data anti-piracy measures for music specifically, as well as doing your licensing to major big budget film scores and shows. and just making sure that your copyrights are on chain and nobody can actually pirate and claim that your data is yours. Royalty systems are great and all, but you're right, data protection and privacy, uh, anti-piracy is more important. So yeah, and this is a company that's based out of Japan, and Japan has been collaborating with Shanghai. So it's great to see, uh, multifaceted engineers come together over one unified idea, regardless of communism, socialism, or capitalism, instincts. I feel like blockchain is transcending borders, governments, and boundaries, man. Like it's a beautiful thing to see and witness.
Yeah, I was just talking on a couple podcasts yesterday about gamers and crypto and
Mhm.
entertainers and things, and I think people miss the point of and it's music is part of that as well, not just movies or podcasts, things to that effect, or live streaming video games, but music and utilizing the technology of blockchain for piracy prevention and protection is probably one of the more powerful tools that has yet to hit the mainstream's utilization. But I think when they figure out how to, once they tokenize these, and start really figuring out how to do it in a real simple way, because I mean, at this point, this the legacy music industry is set up for a real plug and play for an artist. I know it's cumbersome. It's a lot of like middlemen, but
Mhm.
it's set up. It works. It's a fine tuned scam machine.
Barely. It barely works, actually. You'd be surprised. DCMA protocol can be easily circumvented by just pitching a track like seven semitones down or three semitones up. Like, really, it barely works as is,
Hmm.
And there are patents that are being registered right now internationally that are going to be able to prevent this. And they're all integrated on blockchain tech. So,
All
something to
right.
really think about, Like, and all these other platforms that are going to be integrating with Soundlinks are also going to be using the royalty system, and making sure that DCMA is all compliant and
So how
whatnot.
do
And
people interact with this content? Do they need a wallet instead of like a media player?
yeah, actually, it's a great question. They have clients and applications, mobile applications, and you can actually invest in an artist as well, and then take that art and then get the QR code for it, even pay to download too. And the streaming is considered mining. So, and
That's
everything
interesting.
it is, yeah. I've been sending people driving traffic to my music on Tune, and they've been mining my music because that's just how it is nowadays with specific decentralized portals. The only problem with Tune, though, is that there is a bit of a power structure where they have terms of service, just like Spotify, just like SoundCloud, any other corporate mainstream outlet. And they can actually confiscate your royalties, and they can truly just take down your music. And there was a massive backlash in the community over this. But, you know,
So is
Audius
there any
is
decentralized solutions, or are they just more
see
centralized at the moment?
Audius is trying to move forward with a decentralized way of doing things, but there are bad actors in the space that are actually putting up music that's been copyrighted, and that's
That's what I
DCMA
worry about with like
compliant.
Steam It and shit. People going and
Uh-huh.
taking like legitimate blogs and copy and pasting it. Like, what if people were sharing Cliff Hyde's reports on Steam It and getting massive upvotes for stealing that blog and resharing it on that platform?
Exactly. It's crazy, right? Like that's an actual legal liability. Like, uh, I
Yeah,
think that's one of the reasons why Dan Lammer actually distanced himself from the project.
yeah,
I
that and
think.
many other reasons.
Hmm. Totally. I mean, also get to work on his real brainchild EOS. So
Yeah, yeah,
there's a
for
lot for him.
sure.
So, hmm but it comes back to the idea of actually just getting the music out to the people, and not
you
necessarily
know,
just and being heard and discovered. It's really hard for that to happen in the traditional mainstream channels. You gotta step outside the box and think creative sometimes, man.
you mentioned EOS, and they just started talking about audio, like phone calls and stuff on the blockchain or whatever through
Hmm.
EOS. Imagine, utilizing that for streaming music as well on the EOS blockchain.
Oh, totally. All these. Oh man, I'm glad you brought up telecommunications. All these blockchains are actually going to be integrated within each other. When it comes down to it, they're going to be blockchain agnostic
Yep.
telecommunication protocols. And in fact, one of the coins that I'm heavily invested in and trading in, that's uh, right now based out of Singapore, Germany, Miami, and I believe we also have headquarters in Belize. They're issuing smartphones, laptops as well, that are all integrated via IPFS. They all operate on node systems by default in a custom operating system. And it's out of this world technology, man. Like, I can't believe what's coming. Like, it's going to be groundbreaking stuff. I'm talking like end-to-end peer-to-peer encrypted phone communications, which is going to provide anti-espionage measures. It's absolutely great. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm sure that the mafia is going to be looking at this technology and thinking, "Damn, I wish we had this back in our day." Having to drive
Yeah.
20 miles to a random payphone and make a phone call.
Exactly.
But my point is, this sounds like great technology until you think of the bad actors who are going to utilize it. And, is that something that is preventable? And is it something that may outweigh the good uses of the technology that's being developed? May more bad actors utilize it than good actors? Or may the volume of the technology increase the bad action of these malicious people? And I start to, contemplate on that theory and thought when you bring up, oh, now you have anti-espionage. I'm like, well, you also have, criminal lubricant now.
True. I agree. And that's actually something that I've been talking with a couple of my affiliates with about. It's really a gray area that like humans are inherently free, and who's to determine what's truly illegal and what's truly unconstitutional? I mean, or what's like the norm, the societal norm? Like, who really truly decides that? Like,
A consensus.
okay, totally. I agree with that. And that's now when it comes down to the consensus, how do we make sure that people's voices are actually being heard nonetheless, and that this consensus is actually being validated by the people
And
of the
sometimes the
societies?
consensus isn't always on the right side. Just because the
Hmm.
majority says what is or isn't right doesn't always make it a right decision, even if it has the majorital approval of the consensus. For example, slavery. That had
Yep.
a consensus for a while, but it was completely fucked up until the consensus changed.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people don't really want to acknowledge that nonetheless, but I'm glad that you do. And honestly, all in all, like societal norms change, they evolve. And I think
Yep.
blockchain is a part of this next evolution of societal change. And these norms that we once thought were taboo are literally going to be broken down. And people are actually going to come to realize that, hey, you know what? Humanity is truly inherently free, and oppressive rule of law almost stands no bounds, you
Yeah,
know?
look at gay marriage, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
a decade ago, like you were talking about earlier
Yep.
before we went live, reflecting on the decade, and a decade ago, gay marriage would have been, completely unthought of or illegal at that,
Yep.
presence, and now it's pretty commonly accepted, I would say. I mean, of course, there's always going to be a minority of a pushback on anything moving forward as
Tons of
society
bigotry.
grows, but yeah,
Yep.
of course. But and that's where I think that's what we have at the moment is blockchain or cryptocurrency bigotry. And
Oh
people
yeah.
don't perceive it that way because it's not related in the same aspects of previous bigotries. But it is what we're at. We're seeing that from fiaters. We're seeing pushback in that same way moving forward as a society with crypto and blockchain technology.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just excited to see all of these reversals on positions from these corporations that
Mm-hmm.
were once short and now they're
They all
going
get woke
long.
little by little.
Yep. Absolutely, man. And it's only a matter of time. We're just chipping away at the establishment protocols, man. Like, you know, it's like, what would you rather have, a broken system that's easily manipulated, or would you rather have something that's, immutable and absolutely transparent and open that anybody can tap into and develop on? Like,
Yep, and look at how technology has disrupted the music industry time and
hmm
time again.
Yep.
from streaming platforms to digital music. Look at Tower Records. You know, they're like the blockbuster of, you know, entertainment when it comes to the music industry, from the movie industry being Blockbuster. And,
Hmm.
you know, Apple's iTunes music store has the same potential as, you know, Tower Records when it comes to not utilizing the technologies at hand. And I think a lot of these up and coming projects that are working in the music industry utilizing the technology will just simply replace those legacy, protocols that are, middlemen and paper rubber stampers. That's all they
Hmm.
really do, and they take huge percentages for that. Do you think that it's going to be things like smart contracts that help facilitate this transition, or
It's
you
already
see?
happening.
Okay,
Yep. To answer your question short, it's already going down. And in fact, General Electric is involved. So
how
you
so?
have major, well, you see, they have a blockchain based firm that's an umbrella of many projects. And in fact, General Electric recently acquired June, essentially. And it's through a subsidiary corporation, but nonetheless they are the benefactor of Tune now, and Tune has been issuing smart contract based royalties on a platform that is guaranteeing that there will be censorship, that they can enforce the law of DCMA protocol, the current uh, industry standards for actual protections for copyright and digital monetization. And it's just making sure that people aren't going to be screwed over. It comes down to the growth of a platform that's issuing royalties with smart contracts and is disrupting the current music industry right now. Like day after day, people are moving their data onto these blockchain platforms and they're actually monetizing it sensorlessly. So yeah.
Yeah, have you seen what what's her name? Emojin Heap, I think I'm saying that right.
Yep,
Doing
you said
music
it.
on
Mhm.
Ujo Music.
Yep. Oh yeah, Ojo is another good platform too. And
Is it Ojo or Ujo? I've been saying it wrong my
Ujo,
whole life.
is it, man? It's one of those Japanese
No, because I
platforms,
want to say Ojo because that's basically how it's written, but I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
pronounced Ujo. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, it's something like that. I
It's
Tough
UJO,
call.
right?
Yeah. I thought it was with an I. No way. Yeah, you're right. It is UJO. Yep, it is UJO. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she and a couple other artists have actually been tokenizing and giving back to their fan base, a
Right.
share of the percentages
That's
in smart contract. Yep.
gamifying the music industry, which has never been done before. Other artists
Mm-hmm.
have tried with like exclusive album art, released in
Yep.
maybe one out of 1,000 records or something, but this
Totally.
is like a tokenized version of that concept of gamifying your audience and bringing them into the industry instead of just a
Mm-hmm.
one way parasitic, here, give me your money, here's music and that's it, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't resell that music legally, you can't do it, you can't rent that out, but if you were to get that exclusive album art, you can legally resell that.
Exactly. It's like digital exclusive special editions
Yep.
that are practically tokens on a
There has to
blockchain,
be a
man.
new word for these kinds of gamified rewards, and I don't want loyalty points or rewards points to be
Mm-hmm.
that term because I don't think it suits. I think a new terminology will be evolved out of the millennial dictionary, just like we have like YOLO and the word meme and all these
Mm-hmm.
words that come out of just society's acceptance of moving forward. So like the term for whatever this item is has yet to be decided by the consensus, but it
Mm-hmm.
will be there eventually to define what a digital reward is for being a loyal Patreon to an artist.
Absolutely. Uh, Dude, it comes down to actually this technology being adopted and the idea of it being like a token, just like straight up being called a token is powerful, like I feel it is, at least,
Yeah,
especially on a platform that is secure and sound, and can be transferred anywhere in the world. And so I think it's kind of like the idea of having like a special edition poster hanging up in your wall,
yep.
but like much better because like if you want, you can easily liquidate it.
and
And
it
like,
can be proven to not be just a copy or a print. It's an original of the collection verified on the blockchain.
yep.
And I think there'll be physical representations that are backed by digital, receipts. So if you have a physical copy of something, you wouldn't really be able to get rid of it without the certificate of authentication, which most likely would be a digital token of some sort.
hmm Uh, Based on a QR code on the actual physical
Yep.
object.
Yeah.
So it just
Yeah, I
makes
think
sense
of
to do so.
like artists, like Josie here. I have her art up, and I have a tokenized art on the blockchain that I actually have a physical piece that's
hmm
represented by a digital token, and it's just amazing utility. And I think even moving forward, we could see people like Banksy putting a private key behind something that he paints on, so people have to decide, is the bitcoin that's behind that private behind that art worth destroying the art to get to the asset, or is the asset the art itself? And people, because when you see
hmm
Banksy graffiti on a restaurant, they actually rip the wall off and sell his art and just rebuild the wall, because the
hmm
art's so valuable. So if he were to put up a piece of paper that's laminated, spray paint over it some art, you would have to decide, do I destroy the art to get to the bitcoin or whatever, or do I keep the art as whole? And I think that's like a different type of a proof of artist as well.
Yeah, and it's a different type of appreciation too. It's like people love this art so much, and it's in the public that they didn't actually want to redeem that private key. They didn't want to, sweep that wallet. Like, I think that's a great way of like actually proving that art truly has value, and it's not
Yep.
just somebody wasting their damn time. You know what I
And
mean?
think about the power that it would bring to the money laundering market that is the art industry anyway.
hmm Exactly.
It's
Yep.
really what it's for.
Yeah. Speaking of which, there's a wallet application called Art Vibe that people are using to do such things now with too. Just makes
See?
sense. But majority of the art market right now is just based in washed blood money.
Yep. Well, that's what the
It's
NFT market is right now, and a lot of people are paying attention to these non-fungible token manipulations. But
hmm
a few months ago, you saw an article, and it was everywhere, that a Formula F1 NFT race car sold for over six figures to a buyer. And I'm like, yeah, of course. The guy who created it bought it off himself, so he never had to foot the bill. Like, are you that gullible? And a lot of artists do that too. They create art. They have silent auctions, and they purchase their own art to inflate the value of the either the next auction or the next painting.
oh man, that's
Or investors,
incredibly,
right? So an investor
yeah.
will anonymously buy art just to pump their previous investments, and then they donate it for a tax write-off.
Dude, that's incredible. Whoa, man, that's like the easiest way to just like circumvent like taxation.
That's
Like
what
what?
happens in the art industry. And as soon as they realize, and that's the thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, but that's illegal. I'm like, again, things being legal and illegal don't mean right or wrong.
hmm
And I think, things like money laundering and stuff, those terminologies, just like the ones that were waiting to be created, were created, but not by a consensus of society, but by the minority of the controllers.
Yep.
And that terminology fits their agenda, not this consensus of the majority's agenda.
Oh,
Uh,
totally. I completely agree with that statement. It comes down to somebody from the top down wanting to have a piece of the pie, regardless of where it is or where it's going. I mean, look at the Panama Papers. They're involved, they're complicit. These people know what the hell's going on. I
oh,
mean,
Trek
really,
says, "What's up?" By the way, I didn't want to forget the shout out Trek. He said, "What's up with all those
hey,
speakers anyway?"
oh yeah. So I'm a A1 technician. My father and I run a business where we like set up speakers, DJ events. So I'm glad he asked. I have a specific piece of gear that I wanted to show you. Since you brought up a Morgan Key, where did I put it? Oh well, I guess I'll just find it later. But yeah, it's a power glove, and essentially I can DJ with my hand instead of just like staying behind a board and just like being a static little DJ on a stage. I can actually move around, dance, and actually like still mix too. And this is only going to improve once I get my hands on AR glasses, some like slim Apple AR glasses, and it's pretty awesome, man. Like it's the fact that like I can use gesture to control filters, effects, and also beat match. You know, I can change tempo, I can change
Oh
pitch,
shit.
all by just like pressing buttons on my hand. You know, they're actually really lightweight and compact and slim on latex form factor. And also, I can control the airspace around me too. Like I have an aura around my body that operates as an XY modulation axis. So yeah, it's like I'm a bit of a techno wizard, if you will, man.
Oh shit.
I make like deep house, drum and bass. I make like
Are you
dubstep.
like trying to license this technology out? You reaching out to people like Dead Mouse and shit?
Actually, the company that made this is actually trying to sell their technology to me. They don't really see the future of their tech. They only raised about a 500K seed, and I was an angel investor into the company. And I made sure that they brought the project to life. They brought the project software and the product itself to life, and it got featured on Yahoo Finance, TechCrunch, a lot of other press outlets, but it didn't actually sell too well. But it's still in its infancy, and I'm trying to acquire it and then actually take it to the mainstream because it's incredibly power gesture based hardware and software integration that needs to have its time of day. I feel like Jimi Hendrix right now, dude. To be honest with you, with this technology, because like not too many people actually have access to this, not too many people know
Well,
how to
that and
use
a
it.
lot of people don't have the mentality for it or the vision to utilize it, right? I mean,
Yep.
hindsight is key when it comes to implementing technology into an industry in any funneled aspect. So, like,
hmm
you have that vision apparently to see the tech and actually utilize it in a way that nobody else can, man. So just
hmm
keep plugging at that because that actually is like when I'm thinking about it, and most like you were saying, like most and all DJs or artists in general when they're doing their entertainment cannot interact with the audience in that way.
hmm You're right. They're behind a massive stage. They're letting the tech speak for them via its like 3D rendering over like a massive LED panels, or they're actually just staying on the microphone shouting at the crowd. It's like it's a matter of time for them to actually move away from just sitting there behind a booth and not actually like interacting and moving around and being able to control their voice, the way their voice sounds. Not only
Yo,
that,
you know what would be a
but
cool concept? To see this in a video game similar to like Guitar Hero or that
hmm
lightsaber game
yeah, Beat
where the
Saber.
music, yeah, Beat Saber, where you're like, when you're seeing the music on screen, you have to do certain gestures and you could learn American Sign Language playing music doing it.
hmm Yeah, that'd be so cool. Actually, that's a really good idea for a video game, man. But dude, when it comes down to it, like gesture-based software
I was
inside of our
using gestures
computer,
like
like,
fucking years ago, bro, before
yeah, dude.
anybody was into it. And like you
hmm
see the new phones that are coming out where
Uh-huh.
like all you have to do is do this over the screen and it
Yep.
scrolls. I was doing that like probably a decade ago because I worked at a phone repair shop and I constantly needed to see blueprints and diagrams and my hands
hmm
were holding very small, very, sensitive materials so I could just like
hmm
wave the tweezers up and it would scroll the blueprints.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, that's like an industry way of putting it. Now it's actually it's in the hands of the consumers now. Like that industry use case and consumer-based use cases, there's acceptance lag.
Yep.
There's like implementation lag. But like, dude, when it comes down to like the people that really work in the tech industry that actually see what's coming and like they just love technology for what it is, like, dude, they're
Well,
predicting the future because they see it. They're just simply they're using it.
you mentioned lag, and there's also inspirational lag, where
Mhm.
people are inspired by others, and we see things become trending, and that's another aspect of technologically advancing as well, where it's a niche utilized device or tool in some aspect, and then people are inspired by somebody else's utilization of it and maybe tweak it and use it in their own way that nobody else would have expected or had the foresight to do themselves.
hmm Yeah, totally. And I think that's just like open source technology advantageousness, even if it's not open source and it's in a private repository, somebody's going to set it free. Somebody's going to set the genie free. I mean, look at Android, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, And plus, if you look at what's coming next with CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, you can see that they're just implementing industry-based standards left and right, like
Yep.
over the form of decades.
And it's pressure too. Like look at Apple. They
Mhm.
got rid of the headphone jack.
Yep.
Industry leaders saw that and they were pressured into mimicking that evolutionary stage. And now we're seeing Samsung partner with Engine and putting blockchain wallets in their phones and having DApp stores by
Hmm.
default. You think
Yep.
Apple won't have a DApp store by default after Samsung announces theirs this
Oh,
month?
of course it's coming. Are you kidding me? Like, they actually have a blockchain toolkit that they're releasing. Still, they're not coming out with a Bitcoin wallet. They're not coming out with an Ethereum wallet just yet. Engine is so powerful because, of course, it operates as an NFT based platform where anybody can develop their own token and actually put it inside of a game and gamify every aspect of the implementation of coding. They can tokenize any aspect of an item inside of a game. They can tokenize a world that a user created.
Right? What's your
It's
Twitter
incredibly
account?
powerful. I actually made a new Twitter account recently. I'm gonna go ahead and do a retweet. Let me go and log in. 1 second.
Yeah, Coach
You
Trek,
know.
aka PFC, wanted to
Hmm.
know what your Twitter account was. You know what's interesting? I've thought about and I've seen people using audio to encrypt their private keys, and how interesting of an
Hmm.
idea it is to encrypt crypto into audio and release music where people actually are incentivized to now decrypt the music. So back in the day, the conspiracy, I guess. I don't know if this is so factual. Like I was a kid when I really started to hear the rumors, but if you
Hmm.
had like a vinyl record and you played it backwards at a certain speed, you could hear hidden messages. Well,
Yep.
imagine if something to that aspect now utilizing this technology where you take a song and you do something to that sense where you're playing it backwards or whatever the case may be, and you can unlock cryptocurrency by releasing a private key that was encrypted in the music. So now artists can gamify their albums by putting 1 Bitcoin in the album in a random song and a random soundbite, and now it's sort of like game theory,
Hmm. Makes sense. I
like a
remember
Willy
talking about
Wonka
you.
golden ticket.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about this at in Philadelphia too. It's a really powerful tool. I actually want to learn how to do that, and I'm glad you mentioned that again because, like, really, I need to find a way to make sure that people aren't trying to actually break into my wallets. Like, I'm not gonna say any names, but there's some people out there that are actually quite nefarious, man. Like they pretend like they're your friend on the internet, but then like once they see you in real life, man, they trying to like go through your stuff and take what's yours, and just like, it, and
Yeah, I'm
if I have
careful
that
whose
next,
Wi-Fi I connect to when I'm invited
yeah,
over for dinner.
hmm, you're right, dude. And like that's one of the reasons why when I'm on the go, I'm always tethering. Like I'm just always like trying to keep it like to myself. I'm not trying to tap in other people's Wi-Fi networks and see what's coming through my packet stream. That's not cool. So yeah, I really like that idea because like I'm a sound engineer and like I can come up with like some crazy frequency patterns, and just like
Yep.
play it back to
Well,
get
did you
access
hear
into my
the
keys,
guy
man.
who's suing Google because he
Hmm.
encrypted his algorithm that generates songs? So Google basically copyright this guy's content because they used his program or whatever. So basically, he was able to catch them red-handed copywriting from his project or whatever. So like, encrypting your content can also save you from conglomerate manipulation where they're stealing from you, because when you look at when people post music or whatever on YouTube and they play it at a different speed, and then when you play it, all you have to do is adjust for that adjustment. So if they played it at 2 times the speed, you played it at 2 times slower the speed, and now you can hear the music perfectly.
Hmm.
And those loopholes are how they're trying to get around, because YouTube makes ad revenue no matter what. They don't care if people are stealing your music and getting around those loopholes. But when now you're encrypting it, at any rate it's played, it's copyright in technology. The data is always there.
Yeah, that's great though, but the idea of that, because these corporations don't actually have an incentive to actually move forward in that manner to make sure that everything is encrypted and that people can't pirate your stuff, like people are ripping music off of YouTube more than ever nowadays. And
Yep.
when it comes down to it, oh yeah, and to answer the question, my Twitter tag is at TPS 0011. So yeah, you can find me there. But yeah, it's great that there's the ideas of today and modern day technology of actually caring about who's doing what with your data and how this is being implemented and forth and so on, because of the ideas that you know piracy is just like cutting corners. It's creating a sense of lack, just like constant lack for people that actually.
I think it's the evolution of a media player to a media wallet. And I
Hmm.
think we were talking about this in Philly too. We went from evolutionary stages of media and technology from MP2, MP3, MP4, and we're now at the dawn of a new era of MP5, where when you want to stream your content, you no longer open what is previously considered a media player that would read a .mp4 file. You have to
Hmm.
go to a media wallet that's going to read a .btc or whatever blockchain that media is encrypted on reader. And
Oh.
and opening that, like you say, you're mining, which I really wanted to dive into. When you're
Uh-huh.
streaming, these files now, you're incentivized to use that legitimate media wallet instead of an illegitimate media player, because you're going to be rewarded while streaming. So every time you stream on your wallet, you get a reward rather than not. So I think that would be like the incentivization of preventing piracy as well. The same reason we saw the leap from people buying records to
Hmm.
Napster introducing piracy, to then Apple having their iTunes, where convenience overwrit the actual process. So it was just more convenient to steal music because it was so hard to just buy a single song. Apple saw that and they made it possible for you to buy a single song, and then people were like, well, getting a virus on my computer isn't worth the risk. I can just actually get it for $1 now. When the next incentive is, well, maybe I could make $1 if I listen to my music all day on this media wallet instead of listening to pirated music on this media player. So it's an
Hmm.
investment now, buying content and buying music rather than a cost or just an expense.
Dang, that's brilliant. I never actually even thought about that concept of MP5 and MP6. Like I've never like nobody even talks about this. Well, to me at least. It will and dude, this is really is the next step, the next evolution, which you just described, man. Like I was actually duck going that as you were talking about it. And I'm like, whoa, my mind's just been blown. I didn't even know that was a thing until now. Man, that's
Well, that's what
epic.
I would consider. Your media is basically an MP5 file.
Hmm. Yeah.
An MP4 file is multiple different types of files that can be converted into an MP4 just by changing the file name on your desktop. MP5 may be atomic swaps or using oracles to do similar things. Where if you have like your Monarch media wallet or your Edge media wallet,
Hmm.
and you wanted to convert, because a lot of blockchain projects like Steam Monsters or Splinterlands, I got their
Hmm.
big ass banner
Yeah,
up over there.
I remember back when they
Um,
called it was Steam Monsters. Now they're going blockchain agnostic,
Right.
regardless
Did you
of
see what they're
yeah.
doing with Wax.io? They're taking their Steam NFT trading cards, they're
Hmm.
duplicating them on the Ethereum blockchain and giving them a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you want your trading card on the Ethereum blockchain as, an ARC 721 non-fungible, you
Hmm.
send your Steam NFT to the Oracle, and it sends you back that NFT that's on the Ethereum blockchain, taking out the one of supply that's on Steam and putting one into supply on the Ethereum blockchain, and having, I think, multiple files of your media on multiple blockchains that has that 1-to-1 valuable ratio. Now we're talking about media stable coins.
Exactly, and that's awesome because of the idea that regardless of what chain you're on, it shouldn't restrict the data and where you want that data to go around the planet. And honestly, I believe that Steam Monsters, Splinterlands, whatever you really want to call it, for the OGs, it is a great project, and they're making some great strides in the NFT industry. Plus, they have their music done by Steam Tune musicians that utilize Tune, that tokenize their music on the blockchain. If you go to tune.co right now and you look at the main page, scroll down to the hottest tracks, you'll see a song that's literally on Splinterlands right now, you know? And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
exactly. Like, dude, it's a beautiful way of actually distributing people's music too, and actually like giving back to the community. Like, you gotta like grow as a community and not just hire all these big names, you know, actually like implement change from within your community and then let it spread.
So how do
It's a
we reach out to the legacy communities and evolve them on? Do you think that like how musicians, like Dre, he became a producer. How do we get the artists of today to become the producers of the blockchain artists of tomorrow?
well, incentivization. And I was on Crypto Blood's podcast, you know, his live stream, and I was talking to him about the idea of um, mass adoption through a total capitulation of the current industry onto this migration. And I'm thinking like we're gonna have to see like anywhere between a $5 to $10 trillion market cap industry
Mm.
for it to be like true mass adoption of these legacy uh, figures. And once that does happen, then we'll see like the massive change. But until then, like they just don't really see the monetary incentive behind this. Like,
Yeah, they're really comfortable in their
mm-hmm,
ways inside their environments of today.
mm-hmm,
Taking any time out of that to learn something that potentially may not have that benefits, just time is money. So when you're
mm-hmm,
talking to these people about the time that they have to invest to get prepared to adopt the next technology, honestly, it's not worth their while, and that goes for every industry that this technology is disrupting. It really is not worth anyone's while, and that's why everyone's considered this, and me myself, a paradigm shifting technology where we'll see that the top of that pyramid of every industry will eventually flip to the bottom because they're
mm-hmm,
not ready, and then we'll see, I think, potential for acquisitions to occur. We'll see a lot of these legacy companies buying proprietary blockchain technologies, or technologies and companies included.
mm-hmm.
We'll start to see, I think, a developer sweep like we saw in the ICO boom.
Oh,
During the
totally.
ICO boom, every developer was being poached left and right, but that was an echo chamber poaching from this blockchain up and coming ICO to another blockchain ICO up and coming project.
Mm-hmm.
Wait until we see the legacy industry do the same fucking thing by trying to poach for these specific types of developers.
See, that's exactly what's going to happen. And there's a massive supply shock that's going to happen because they're going to realize that this technology is so fluid and it's evolving in its own language protocols that it's actually kind of difficult to keep up with and how it's
Yep.
changing. And literally, like, you know, a month in the Ethereum Solidity ecosystem is practically like a year in real life. If you think about it, the way the technology is evolving and moving, you know, like you can
Yeah.
have great fluid code that's like, you know, that compiles, that runs very well. And then once Ethereum 2.0 and Plasma hits the fan, you know, like it's completely obsolete.
You
It
touched on
comes,
something really important here. We have a difference, though, between what you're saying and what's being adopted now. The technology
mm-hmm,
is innovating exponentially quicker than previous technologies have innovated,
uh-huh,
but it's being, I think, the exact opposite in adoption. As legacy technologies were taking so long to innovate,
mm-hmm,
and this technology is doing the opposite. It's innovating very quickly, but the opposite is occurring with adoption. Now we're not seeing the same supply and demand use case of the technology. We did a little bit with crypto kitties, but that was still a very small amount of people when you're
mm-hmm,
comparing it to like Visa transactions or streaming on Apple's content platform. So
yep,
when we start to see that shift into where more people, the demand is higher than the actual tech can handle, That's where I'm going to be, excited for. Because right now we just have this technology that keeps innovating. We're, time and time again, it's moving forward exponentially quicker than expected. Look at, Bitcoin with Lightning and Segwit, and
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum 2.0 coming quicker than expected, and sharding on the way. But who's adopting it? Who's using this as it's being innovated so rapidly? And I think that it might be because of the intimidation factor of that. Some people are intimidated by the fact of Apple's operating systems innovation is so quick, it's so hard to keep up while developing an application on that platform. So as this technology evolves so quickly, developing on it is increasingly time consuming. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like a snake eating its own tail during production.
Exactly. And that's what these companies are going to realize once they step into the space is that, there will never be a time in which these blockchain developers that are working collectively in a decentralized autonomous organization will ever stop or slow down. Like it
If they don't start now, they'll never get a chance to catch up, is what I'm
mhm.
saying. There is
Yeah, and I
no
agree.
catch up. There's never going to be a blockbuster streaming application,
Hmm.
and there will never be a Wells Fargo cryptocurrency wallet. Just they won't have the time to innovate.
Hmm. Absolutely. And it's a shame because they're so stuck in their ways, their traditional ways of thinking that, oh no, this blockchain thing, no way it's going to happen. No way. It's impossible that
Yeah,
this is
Tower
going
Records said the same thing about
to. Hmm.
streaming. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just it's looking up at the meteor coming down, and it's gonna pass. It's gonna pass. It's gonna pass. Next thing you know, you're the dinosaurs,
exactly.
and that's what people do when they're complacent and they're very content in their ways, and they recognize that they have no ability to do anything about it. We never even saw the attempt of a blockbuster streaming application. We are though seeing the desperate of banks like and what is it
Oh no.
Goldman Sachs, I think, right? Yeah, Goldman Sachs Circle acquired Poloniex, and then we have stable coins and things like that popping up.
Hmm. Hey, can you check your stream? Because you kind of lagged out again.
No, no. Let me
Yep.
know if I'm still here, guys.
So and that's right about the whole extinction metaphor, man. The dinosaurs looking at their death incoming. I mean, it was more like volcanoes too, tons of eruptions that happened. But but still, it's besides the point. It's like you gotta evolve or die, right? Like for real. So I wanted to show you. Can you please be quiet, little buddy? Can you? You can hear my Doge, man. He's vouching for attention. So this is the module right here.
Oh,
This
okay, that's
yeah.
definitely different than what I was picturing.
Hmm. This is yep, and that module integrates with this right here. It's a really lightweight glove, and every single gray pad you see can trigger an event sequence. I can even use it as a mouse or keyboard. So,
All right, yeah, we're
but
still. It looks like we're still live.
okay, awesome. So yeah, when it comes down to the premise of people actually wanting to develop on this tech, it's going to be interesting. Like a lot of people that are involved right now, they're never going to be unemployed ever again, unless the AI learns how to code and actually develop on the ecosystems, and displaces hundreds of thousands of developers because there are that many developers right now building on blockchain. It's a market trend that's not stopping. And have you ever heard of Gitcoin?
No, get coin.
Yeah, dude, Gitcoin is so cool. All right, so
I feel like
literally,
they missed a really good marketing opportunity by not naming it Got Coin and taking with the Got Milk concept. But
uh-huh.
okay, get coin.
Yeah, it's that's a funny one. Oh man, we should come up with a competitor. Let's do it.
We could fork it.
Yeah, we forget. No, but seriously, the idea is like these companies and corporations are actually going to get coin and like putting up bug bounties, putting up development jobs and freelancing portals, and they're paying people in cryptocurrency specifically, so to actually develop on the platform in a decentralized, autonomous way, regardless of where
Now,
you are in the world.
Now,
So
as much as I love that as a crypto enthusiast, I think
hmm
that might be deterring opportunists from outside of the interest of crypto that could participate in the bounties, you know? So, like, when
hmm
I look at projects that accept cash and crypto, I'm like, oh, you should only accept crypto. But then I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of an elitist mentality of
hmm
crypto because it's at this level right now, it's still a very elitist currency.
it
The
is.
elite are utilizing this in a first world manner for speculation, and then the not so fortunate in third worlds are actually utilizing it, but at the majority level of volume, it's an elitist use case.
hmm
So I think it might be a burden at some point, right, to be only crypto in eccentric.
It will possibly, but I believe that it's all going to come full circle, and that developers are going to see the benefit of accepting cryptocurrency strictly for developing on cryptocurrency based platforms. Like Bitsong recently had a bounty up for about 50 Ethereum to solve a crucial problem on their platform. Bitsong is another one of those tokenization smart contract royalty platforms that exist on the Ethereum blockchain. And also, Musicoin was hosting bounties as well to solve issues with their mobile application
Do you want to talk about
integration.
the ethics of bounties, though? And I could argue
Ah,
the
man.
unethical side of it because now you have dozens, potentially hundreds, maybe even thousands of free laborers who now are not being rewarded for their efforts. Maybe somebody
hmm
does complete the bounty and others were close, or either way, they did put resource, time, and effort in. Isn't that a sort of form
Oh,
of
I
free labor?
yes, I agree. It really is, and there has to be a way to like tokenize the time, the equity of time that you've spent contributing to a repository. There has to be a way, and that's the reason why I think this form factor that exists right now is ripe for disruption within our space, because of the fact that people aren't really going to waste their time on trying to solve a problem if they literally realize that somebody else is like literally a week away from doing it, or like
Right.
48 hours away from doing it. Like, it makes no sense. And contributing code to a project is kind of arbitrary. It's something like law, really. Like you
What?
can have
Yeah.
like you can have like some really elegant code, and then you're on your way to solving a great problem, or like you're on your way to implementing a new feature that nobody in the core corporation would have actually like realized was necessary.
Well, I
And
mean, even looking at it as an artist, though, what if there was a bounty
mhm,
for a hit song, and
mhm,
you could have your own concert by the proposal system for that bounty, and you
yeah,
create a unique song, you submit it, and you're not rewarded with the
mhm,
bounty, somebody else is, but now you submitted, a unique content to somebody that, or it could be, the a submission for a fix of a bug, and you submit it, but it's not, it works, but it's not as accepted as the one that may be a little bit better, right? So now they still
exactly.
get to utilize your free intellectual property and profit off of that
Mhm,
at a level. So that might be
mhm.
disincentivizing as well.
Oh, I agree. And that's one of the reasons why I believe we need to tokenize that time equity. And one of my affiliates that we were talking about this too, shout out to Steve, cool guy. He was talking about actually uh, taking the time spent inside of a project, recording it, and then turning that into a token, an ERC20 token. And I think it's a great proposition that needs to be implemented through a white paper and then coded out, because like there are corporations right now that are actually recording people's input that's happening in their operating system. They're literally seeing their entire screen, watching how much time they're spending on the project, making sure they're not slacking off and actually being productive. But it's not actually being tokenized. It's just like, monitoring their workforce. And like if you have people that are operating as freelancers, working under W-2, and you want to pay them in cryptocurrency, it just makes sense to do so,
Did you see
and
what
give them
Microsoft is
equity.
doing?
No, what are they doing?
Microsoft is actually doing a little bit about what you're speaking on in a different way,
Hmm.
but I feel like it could be easily implemented in a different direction. But they have tokenized their like rewards for community efforts and stuff. So there's now
Hmm.
NFTs that are scarce. So there's like a batch of 100, some are in a batch of 10,000, and you can contribute to the ecosystem and be rewarded with these NFTs. And I think that's an interesting way of game theorying, sort of a bounty type effort in a more
Hmm.
majority way. Instead of having one reward, you could have 100, and things to that effect, or 10,000 rewards if there's 10,000 contributors or something. So like people that all tried and did actually contribute to
Hmm.
a bounty get some level of reward, like you were talking about. But maybe it's outside of the asset of the 50 Ethereum, but here's one NFT as a sort of a participation trophy in some sort.
Makes sense. Oh wow, participation trophies. Oh man, oh man.
Well, when I think about bounties, I love the concept because I feel like,
Hmm.
what if there was a bounty for my local neighborhood playground, and the city does a really shitty job of keeping it clean. So
Yeah.
if we get the neighborhood and everybody on the block pitches in a couple bucks, maybe we could put up that bounty to get somebody to clean the park. Then I start to worry about people trashing the park so they can get their reward for cleaning it up, or people now creating mafias where this is my turf, and now you can't even attempt to contribute to a bounty.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you that's a little something ridiculous to think about. The idea of competition in that form factor because of like nefarious actors wanting to intervene and just like a nice little community effort, man. And I feel like that's what we're seeing right now with blockchain technology, like the absolute power, like corrupting people and making, the lines being drawn in the sand, like you were saying with, the idea of the mafia wanting this form of anti-espionage in telecommunications. The lines are being drawn where like people are actually seeing that like this technology is great for circumventing the powers that be. So, and
And that's
really.
not always a bad thing when you consider
Mhm.
that's the reason we have a lot of the gun enthusiasts saying that the
Mhm.
right to bear arms isn't just so I could have an assault rifle. It's so I can potentially protect myself from a malicious government if it were to turn against me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know they have tanks and airplanes, but if everybody, every citizen was as equally armed as independent, military, army men or marine or something to that effect, and that's what I think when it comes to technology as well. We need to be well armed technologically in case our government were to intervene and become malicious. Look at what China has become with their centralized internet. A lot of people are cut off from the world intellectually when it comes to the internet. They can't even get information or education in certain aspects because the
Mhm.
government has deemed it illegal. Our government isn't at that level. Sort of is and isn't. I know like people would argue with the 3D printed guns and everything,
Uh-huh.
but technology isn't just for getting rich quick or whatever when it's utilized in that way. It's
Oh,
and this
totally.
is a get freedom quick technology that needs to be adopted more and spread as far as education goes.
I agree. And honestly, man, like there's no stopping it once the shit hits the fan. Like 3D printed technology, defense drones, all this is literally coming. It's right around the corner. Massive robotics, do Boston Dynamics, what they're doing. But let's see, go ahead and take it back to that idea of like the tokenization through participation. Who is to say that those NFTs actually have value? Who
The
who who
market,
determines
right?
that?
The free
Yeah,
market.
okay.
The people that think they're cool or just sentimental or in general. But yeah, that's the power of the free market to decide the value, and that's what I think the argument where people have is who says Bitcoin's worth what it's trading for, and it's the
Mhm.
market.
For sure. But I mean, really, who's going to want to accumulate these NFTs? What's going to be the real purpose behind them? What are you going to be able to stake them?
Well, what if it
Like
looks like a
what's
resume? When you go to
okay?
a
Yeah.
job interview for a developer or some sort, or maybe as a
Hmm.
musician, you could look at these communal badges and see that they were acquired with you could check the public ledger and see that they were acquired without going through an exchange, that they came directly through a smart contract, and that you have rightfully earned these badges. Now you have a tokenized resume of some sort with proof of work actually documented on an open ledger.
Yeah, makes sense. Uh, man, oh man, that's a little something to think about. Like I never actually thought about it that way. Like it could be a form of, validation
Yeah,
for.
that's why people go on Reddit and get these badges and stickers and shit, right? So they can have
Mhm.
that communal clout, that reputation, and that reputation is utilized, monetized, and revenized, and they, work on that. And I think that could be in every industry in multiple ways, from simple sales rep to developer for smart contracts. These different types of tokenized communal efforts can be that reputation. I mean, when you start to see, when you go for a job today, they're going to look at you on Google, they're going to look for you on Twitter, they're going to read your fucking 50 last Facebook post to make sure that you're not a piece of shit person. And I
Mhm.
think that that's just a one aspect that technology has innovated on the hiring force, and that this technology could also be innovated in the same aspect and not be foreseen. Who would have seen your McDonald's manager Googling you and seeing that you said some racist shit 10 years ago? Now you can't get a job.
Yeah, I know, right? That's out of this world ridiculous. But that's exactly what's going on right now. Like people are getting canceled over the things that they were saying like 5, 7 years ago, back before they realized the power of this tool that they're artificing
Or
this hate
before
through.
they became individually woke, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't hold people too much to what they say when they were who they were, as long as they have evolved into somebody now that's remorseful of who they used to be, and things to that effect. Like people's opinions do change, and I think that that's prevents independent or individual innovation as well in a society too, where like people will publicly have a stance on the wrong side of history. A
Mm-hmm.
consensus will conform and might be for self gain or self interest, but they do it, tend to become woke to the consensus's agreement, like we've seen with like Hillary Clinton and gay marriage. The LGBT community wasn't so open to her changing her mind and becoming more accepting of the concept, but I think that that holds society back too. Like, what if Jamie Dimon and Warren Buffett were to become Bitcoiners? How many people would just talk shit because of what they used to say when they were who they used to be?
Exactly. I mean, really, the human ego is metamorphic.
I got my
Really,
first
it's
follow on Mixer for doing a Bitcoin podcast. What up, Hypebot?
hey,
John315 is now following.
that's awesome,
I've
bro.
been streaming on 8 platforms, so I got my first Mixer, and I thought nobody's on Mixer yet doing Bitcoin podcasts, so I figured I'd be the first to market.
You should definitely, man, be that pioneer, bro. Like we're making waves, dude. Like you're pulling somebody's attention in. So, hey, but seriously though, that's a really good, way of putting it. Like, dude, the human consciousness, like it. It's always developing. It's like a sponge, it's always growing, it's like a sea sponge, man. Like people are always taking in new information, learning, and actually becoming a better person or becoming an even worse person, man. It just comes
Right.
down to like what they really think, what's going on up here, bro.
We have
So,
a communal conscience, like you mentioned, but we also have like
mhm.
a communal ego.
Yeah.
And we see that ego is a product of nature versus nurture balanced, but it tends to evolve, and we see that, and we're seeing that. I think when we were talking earlier about the blockchain and crypto bigotry, that we're seeing a societal communal consciousness of the ego going not because like it's tribalism, and that's what feeds the ego feeds into that tribalism, and that's where people are at on the fiat side, the US dollar side, or the cash side
Hmm.
of this evolution. And it's an ego death necessary moment, and I think that's what I came to, and most crypto enthusiasts eventually come to is they lose that ego that they had when it came to monetary value.
Oh, totally. Man, that's insane to think about though. Like, do you think that maybe one day we'll see like $1 equals one Satoshi, 1 pound equals one
Nope.
Satoshi?
I don't
When you're
think. I think one day we'll just see a digital asset value. The U.S. dollar won't be there. It might be a stable coin, but it may not be a stable coin pegged to one U.S. dollar. I think that we're going to see a new era of stable coins evolve,
mm,
where one coin equals 0.001 Bitcoin. So now we have a stable coin pegged to a specific amount of Bitcoin, and that would be more of a true stability in the ecosystem, keeping the entire market cap
oh,
within Bitcoin.
dude, that's what's up. Like, I like that idea because
So
like,
you could see stable coins reflected on the gas pump, but
hmm
it's really a value of Bitcoin. So when you go to pay it, the stable coin, either you have that stable coin or you could send the 0.002 Bitcoin or whatever it may be.
hmm makes sense. Oh, dude, that's powerful to think about. Like, yeah, I mean, who is actually going to want to back that though? Do you think there's going to be like
There's
government
no
bonds
profit
backed
in
by?
it. No,
Yeah.
there's no profit in it. So it would be at a
hmm
Satoshi level, complete communal effort.
hmm
There might be some incentives for the banking industry to get involved somewhere because they're going to be obsolete soon. So
Oh, dude,
try to go
don't.
where the puck is going and not where it's at. Maybe if they could see
hmm
where the puck is going.
Exactly. Oh, bro, don't even get me started, man. These banks are cutting thousands of jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs internationally, man. Deutsche Bank is about to go under, dude. Like, they got to make changes real quick, like if they want to
Well,
survive.
Alex Machinsky had an amazing point when I saw him at the Chainwise conference by Crypto Crow. He was
hmm
talking about if you could remember the telecom industry before the internet. The internet ran on telecom, and there was these giant telecom buildings everywhere. And eventually they just disappeared overnight. And we sort of see that with the banking industry now, where we have a lot of these fiat off and on ramp gateways that really matter. So it's like almost like we see blockchain running on the banks, right? It's almost like the internet running on the telecoms.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to eventually see that paradigm shift as well, and we'll see these big banking buildings get just overnight gone. Like who remembers Bell Atlantic buildings everywhere, or I can't even remember other names of like telecom providers.
Dude, like maybe Telor or
There
um,
was the I remember Atlantic Bell or whatever because of
mhm.
Darth Vader. Oh shit, what's his name? I can't believe I'm blanking.
All right, how about AT&T, man? One of the first. Like
Yeah,
literally.
well they became sort of a data provider because
hmm
that's what they sell now with their mobile devices and their
Yep.
plans is data.
Oh, dude, and they monetize the hell out of that data too, man.
Oh,
Like
they've gotten
all
caught
these.
so many times monetizing data, and what's happening with a lot of that is where we see with these companies like YouTube getting in trouble for monetizing children's attention for ad revenue.
Mhm.
Um, you know, the,
Crazy.
the phone companies that monetize their data, they're doing the same thing. A lot of children have these smartphones, and the data that's being data mined and monetized is from children, which is illegal. You're not
hmm
allowed to profit off of children like that. So I think that it's going to be an interesting political point to be drawn in the sand
hmm
somewhere eventually, where someone might run on this. You can see a
hmm
campaign being run on big data eventually. We have privacy at the forefront of communal attention, and that I think that it's become a sort of a political bungee. Like you see a lot of campaigners saying we need more privacy on social media and stuff.
hmm
That will extend even farther as the communities extend
Uh,
their voice too.
totally, I agree. Let me touch base on one premise that you mentioned, like the idea that you can't really profit off of children on the internet like that. Like, also Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Um, Kappa, dude, Kappa is absolutely ridiculous. Like, like the U.S. government is literally scrambling to protect these kids now, dude. Like it's absolutely insane, dude. Like, have you read the bill? Have you read the measures?
I've
Like, dude, this
actually
is.
seen like 100 YouTubers explain it from their perspectives
Mhm.
and the farewell videos. I've seen YouTubers that have 10 million or 100 million subscribers, and they're saying this is my last video
Yep.
because they don't make content specifically for children, but it could be considered, and because of that risk. It's like a $15,000 fine per video per potential. So it's really
Painful,
sketchy for content creators now.
dude. That's painful. That's have to see. That's one of the reasons why like YouTube and these internet portals, dude. Like, oh, it's gonna be completely like revamped. Like the way the content's gonna be delivered is gonna be completely different. Like,
Yeah, like
there's gonna be so many
PewDiePie's
hoops
not
to
going to
jump
be able
through.
to say buy my merch, link in the
Yeah.
description box below,
Uh huh.
because he's not allowed to sell clickable link merch to children.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Dude,
why I
it's
think
gonna.
he moved over to D Live.
Dude, bro, there's a whole different reason why he moved over to D Live. Like, whole different reason. It's not just because he saw what
Well,
was
I
coming,
mean,
but it was.
everything's always for the
It's.
money and at some level,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I mean,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have done it just for the money if there wasn't another reason. Same reason Ninja wouldn't have left Twitch if there wasn't other pressures and other
Mm-hmm.
issues, and then the money on top of that was just the straw that kind of incentivized the camel.
Mm-hmm. And I remember being on D Live back when it was on the Steam It blockchain. Good
Same.
times, dude. I was doing live
We're
mixes
on D
like
Live right now, by the way.
awesome. That's what's up, man. Dude. So, by the way, like I think that it's probably gonna be evolve like when it comes down to how the law is legislated, because like profit over principle when it comes down to Congress. You know what I mean? Like, come on, bro. All these people are bought and sold to the highest bidder. Some lobbyist is going to come in and change the whole entire ecosystem. And those channels that are going to die out, they're probably going to be revitalized. That's just my, speculation on the situation. But who knows what could happen, right?
Right, right. Well, let's
Mm-hmm.
speculate a little farther to kind of wrap things up.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you? Because a lot of people say like when mass adoption for cryptocurrencies as a financial instrument. In that same aspect, when Moon as a cryptocurrency or blockchain technology mass adopted in the music industry, what does that look like, and how do we get there?
I think when Moon in the cryptocurrency music industry, I'm thinking a year timeline. Hopefully, this doesn't make me look like John McAfee, you know what I mean? But maybe like 2025, 2024, we're going to see a massive influx of crypto users. Right now, we're seeing networks with over 15,000 musicians. We're seeing networks with over 30,000 musicians, all monetizing their information via blockchain. But these artists are obviously underground, not really backed by any sort of like Warner Music Group, Merlin based subsidiaries. They're just people that just love doing what they do. They love their craft and they want to spread love and the message that their music portrays, whether it's love or hate, regardless. They're looking for that next big thing. They're looking for the next MySpace. And I think that when it comes down to being used as a tokenized instrument for downloads, subscriptions, supporting artists, it's happening right now, but people aren't really aware of it. There needs to be a form of education teaching users how to tap into distributed exchanges, decentralized exchanges, even centralized exchanges, and actually wanting to trade, whether it's via Uniswap, one-click solution, or, profiteering on a open ledger book, order books. So that's just the way I see it right now. And I think maybe 2025, 2024 will definitely be the time span where people really wake up to this tech and want to adopt it. So yeah, mind
Got
you,
you.
these are words from somebody that literally made a few of the first candles on dexes that are implementing this technology today. So yeah.
Well, I'll have to get you on again, man, in a little bit and see where you're at and where everything's
Mm-hmm.
going again. And I'm interested to see like where the mainstream utilizes this, or if the mainstream is paradigm shifted into, I think like where we've seen with content creators in other industries already go from mainstream platforms to basically deplatforming. Big shout out to Immortal Technique. You know, a lot of
Hmm.
these artists are independent in every avenue of the way, and I think, you know, being your own bank is just you know, inclusive of the part of be your own producer
Oh,
in
totally.
the industries as well. So I think, you know, you could run with that slogan, be your own producer, and see where it goes. But I really feel like that's what this technology provides, is the ability to not just be your own bank, be your own producer. I had a guest on the other day. We were talking about being your own senator, and I think that, you know, that's the whole the concept behind what Monarch really is. And, you know, shout out to them, but be your own monarch. You know, be your own king,
Hmm.
and you know, be the, you know, just
You're right.
opt out of the centralized bullshit. And as
Mhm.
always, everybody have a day. Where can people go to follow you again? I forgot your Twitter
I'm
handle. I'm
on.
sorry.
Okay, so my Twitter handle is TPS0011. I'm also on Steemit. You can find me there at tps.world or 10 pound sterling. You can find me on minds.com at 10 pound sterling as well. And also listen to my music on Tune, tune.co /artist /10 pound sterling. So yeah, that's my three major portals. So
Well, I'm gonna
outside
go.
of Twitter.
I'm gonna go stream mine some of your songs, man, and jam out after this live stream.
Hmm.
And guys, definitely check out the music. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I open the conversation to you now. We're out of here. Have a day.
We take care. Peace.